Hello and welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna and that is Courtney.
Hello.
So before we get started, we always want to remind you to check out our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we have a bunch of episode updates and awesome memes and serial killer facts and stuff like that if you want to check that out.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
In the description and show notes, we will also have links to the resources we use to research this episode. So if you want to check out some of our news articles and a Barbara Walters episode and a bunch of stuff like that, then check out the links in our show notes. And there will also be links to our Patreon and our Threadless. So if you want small merch items or bonus episodes, check out our Patreon. And if you want larger items like shirts and phone cases, notebooks, stuff like that, then you can go to our Threadless. Cool?
Very cool.
That's it. So we can get started on the case for this week. We're talking about Jean Harris. And we're on letter A for adultery.
There's a lot of adultery going on.
There's so much.
There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming.
It was. However, it was overwhelming. However, you came up with like 3 names off the top of your head. You were like, let's do adultery. And then you rattled off 3 names like it was nothing. Do you remember that?
Yeah. They were all just women being wronged by a man. It was just so timely.
You're like a walking Murderpedia.
Yeah.
You really have a wealth of knowledge.
And the names and stuff.
You do. You always remember the names.
I don't know what day it is.
I'm the person that's like, it was like that one case where the guy lost his head and then this happened and then this.
Oh, you mean Sleepy Hollow?
Exactly.
Ichabod Crane?
And you're the one that knows the name every time.
I don't know how. I really don't.
It's so magical. It's a very cool superpower you have.
I love it that it's a superpower.
It's amazing. To me, in my world, and probably for most of the people listening right now, it's a superpower that you can remember those names.
What it is that I have it's my mantra is knowledge is power. And so it's really crazy that this is my superpower. It's happened.
You've got elephant brain just for murders.
It's perfect.
It's very special. So you rattled off Jean Harris, and I don't think I was very familiar with the case until we started looking into it, but it is a gnarly one.
I think people hear about the Scarsdale diet. And,
yes.
The diet murder. Mm-hmm. And it kind of comes like that. But
you don't necessarily know the name Jean Harris right off the top.
It's also early 80s. So I think, there's a lot of things that have kind of been moved forward about, but this is just like an oldie but a goodie.
Oh yeah, it's a classic. It's got a great wardrobe.
Wonderful.
Vintage thrift store stuff. So Jean Harris was the second of 4 children born to Albert and Mildred Struven in 1923 in Chicago. Her father was a Christian Scientist who was a civil engineer, and her family was often described as wealthy. And you can kind of tell by her look, right?
Yeah.
I try not to talk too much about people's appearance and focus on it, but she's one of those people that just kind of looks wealthy.
She kind of just looks like she's been put together forever. Like her mom,
yeah, she just came out that way.
And she had probably, just this perfect little dress and maybe a little page boy haircut all the time through elementary school, and just was put together. Mm-hmm. And then just carried it on into adulthood.
Yeah, just seeing her as an older woman, I can picture her childhood photos.
I don't think she went through a goth phase.
She was never a rebel. I can't imagine it.
She's what her parents wanted.
From the jump.
Angsty teen girl that they wanted that with like a ribbon tied with a bow kind of shit.
Perfect.
For sure.
Headbands every day.
Yeah.
So Jean's home life was pretty chaotic, and her father was known as a very serious man with a temper. Her father, Albert, was hospitalized for manic depressive disorder, and he was even actually given electroshock therapy. Jean always put a lot of her energy and time into academics from a very young age. And by all accounts, she was a really good student. She always did well.
She seemed to be very involved in education from the beginning in general.
Mm-hmm. She even graduated magna cum laude with a degree in economics from Smith College in Massachusetts. And even though in the 40s, there was only about 3 to 4% of women who were actually college graduates. So you have to remember, we're not talking about 2018. We're talking about the 40s. So as a woman, that's so rare.
Every time I think I see percentages, I go, 3 to 4%. Well, that's like 3 to 4 out of 100. And when I put it that way, it's holy shit.
Yeah.
That's, wow, Jean. You know, but it's like 3 to 4%. I can't even remember that to break that down.
Right.
But it's 3 to 4 out of 100, just so you know.
And I know I'm weird about the statistics, but I knew when we were researching this, I was like, I got to look up what percentage of women actually were college graduates, because that's pretty incredible that she was doing that, you know?
Not that common.
Right. So right after graduation in 1945, Jean married her college sweetheart, Jim Harris, who was a Navy veteran, and she was only 22 years old at the time. Jean's father did not like Jim because he thought that he wasn't ambitious enough, and he disliked him so much that he actually made this huge scene by crying at their wedding.
Ugh. You ever been to a wedding where there's a family member just having a fucking meltdown?
Yeah.
It's not a good look for anyone. And then everyone's just going to talk about it.
Right. It's going to be the gossip of the entire wedding.
You know that every time they got together, like, yeah, so Jean's bringing her asshole husband. Right. You see him? Oh, God.
This jackass.
This guy.
No ambition.
Brings me to tears. Oh, my God.
I just wish my daughter married a man that wanted to do business.
There it is. Oh,
just like,
man.
Dude, get over it.
Nope. I'm going to cry.
Like, you're a father. You raised an adult child. Just man up and just marry her off. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Either it's a mistake or it's not a mistake. You don't have to make a scene.
Absolutely not.
You know?
No scene necessary. She's either going to be Elizabeth Taylor or this is it for her.
Right. Like, it's not the end of the world to be Elizabeth Taylor either. No. I mean, fuck it.
No.
She's doing great, you know?
Yeah, we're going to be fine.
I don't know. Great is a subjective word. But you know what I mean. She's doing okay. So a couple years after they settled into married life, Jean became a first grade teacher. And by 1952, Jean and Jim had 2 sons, David and Jimmy. And Jean became the ideal working mom who juggled her career and family, again, kind of rare in this era. She even set up a kindergarten in their home when she had to stay at home with her young babies. So even if she wasn't out in the working force, she found a way to monetize, basically.
By teaching.
Right? Always. Education. Over and over. That's like her biggest thing.
Very common in this.
So Jean was also a very emotional and high-strung person. She began using the tactic of singing in her head to kind of self-soothe whenever she felt that her emotions were kind of getting the best of her. So over the next decade, Jean and Jim began to kind of drift apart, and Jean became bored and she wanted more. And she was doing a lot of singing in her head.
Sounds like she probably was.
So Jean tried to occupy herself by getting a master's degree, but she still wanted more. If only we all could be that proactive. I feel like when I get overwhelmed, I just shut down.
Oh my God.
Like, I can't imagine just being like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go get my master's.
And she's just going to school to get away from it all.
Right? Like,
this is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
This is what I like to do. It's my hobby, basically.
It's my career, it's my love, it's my hobby, it's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's a perpetual student.
Mm-hmm. So Jean craved excitement and she wanted to be surrounded by successful intellectuals. So she decided to separate from her husband Jim and go pursue that with someone else.
Jim is a blue-collar guy, you know, Navy. Definitely not the doctor, lawyer, white-collar even of something that you would want. It's interesting that that's what Jean decides. Like, after being married for 20 years, she's just like, all right, this is what I want to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
She just went for it because she's just like, I don't want to be working class lady. I want to be like upper echelon. right? It seems like.
Yeah. Could be a little impulsive.
Yeah.
But I guess after 20 years, I don't like him anymore.
Yeah, impulsive, but like she spent some time figuring it out, right?
We'll give her that.
She was just like,
okay.
It's not like she woke up one day, I don't think. I think she always kind of wanted a little bit more. She went back to school, got her master's, probably thought that would like kind of scratch that itch, but it didn't work.
Jim could have been a rebellion as well, because remember, Papa hated him.
Right.
So
she's like, I didn't have a goth phase, but I'm going to marry this blue collar guy that's kind of rebellious, right?
Yeah.
And then she decides, no, I want some like intellectual doctor lawyer type.
She's ambitious and he's not.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe she came around to what her dad thought. I don't know.
Maybe.
So in 1965, after 20 years together, they divorced, and Jim actually later died in 1977. So now that her and Jim were living these separate lives in separate households, Jean figured she needed to increase her income, so she sought out more prestigious jobs. 1 year after her divorce, in 1966, Jean was invited by a New York City high society friend to a dinner party. And it was one of those big Park Avenue big to-dos. And she met this doctor named Herman Tarnower. And he was a successful cardiologist and also an author. And she kind of felt that he ticked all the boxes, right?
Definitely.
You kind of get that feeling right away that this was the guy.
Yes.
So he was born to Eastern European Jewish immigrants and grew up very poor. And he decided that it was his ultimate goal to become really wealthy and never really struggle financially the way that his parents did. So he worked really hard and became a doctor. And eventually he founded the Scarsdale Medical Center. So Herman was known as somewhat of a ladies' man, as you can tell from his name. And he was very active in the high society New York social circles. Former girlfriends describe him as cold-hearted and a player who only cared about his own needs.
Well, his goal is to make sure that he has money that his parents didn't.
Right.
So he's looking out for his number one star player, which is Herman Tarnower.
Yeah.
And you can come along for the ride, but this is what we're doing.
He's basically like, you can come along for the ride this dick, but I'm going to make the money. I'm going to be successful no matter what. It seems like.
This dick is successful.
Right? Like, you hear women describe him as just like this playboy. And it doesn't, you look at him and you're like, it's unexpected.
It's worth a Google search.
Yeah.
To
just look him up.
Because it is very, what you're thinking isn't what you're going to see.
No.
At all, just so you know. Like, it just, yeah. I mean, and that kind of sounds mean, but not really.
No, yeah.
It's just evident. It's just like self-evident.
He looks like a doctor named Herman.
He looks like Dr. Herman Tarnower, cardiologist of Scarsdale, New York. Like,
so then you hear these women describe him, and it doesn't match up to what he looks like and his lifestyle and everything. They describe him as just kind of like love him and leave him, heartbreaker kind of guy, and just out to basically fuck as many women as possible, it sounds like, and then really lie to them and mislead them and then leave them. But then you look at this doctor and it's not the same image of what people describe.
It's not the impression that I get.
Not at all.
Okay. But what this tells me is the charisma and maybe the sense of humor is off the charts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I've fallen victim as well.
Everyone has.
Just overwhelming, like, envelops you and just like, oh my, something about him.
Yeah, charm
There's
that's
just
like a warm blanket.
Yeah.
Just a charming snuggie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's got to be what Herman had.
I really think that's what it is after reading this again and again, too. Like, he was an asshole is what they're saying. But, like, so what are you doing with this asshole? Because you're in New York, like, Park Avenue parties. Why are we giving him a try? Mm-hmm. He
won you over, for sure.
It's really crazy. Like,
yeah.
He was Tom, for sure, at the Regency on Housewives of New York. Just, they all know him, they all knew him, and they all did him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everyone's been there at least once.
More than once.
But, even if he had kind of this reputation as a bit of a player when it came to women, professionally, he was pretty well respected. And in the community, he was pretty well respected.
I think the two are totally mutually exclusive. Like, you can have this, he could be a total dick to chicks, but like, he's an amazing cardiologist.
Yeah, exactly. That's, everybody knew.
Most cardiologists have this weird God complex too. Like, for
Really?
example, mine specifically, when he met my boyfriend, he walked in like, oh, this is my boyfriend, doctor. He says, you can call me God.
Shut up.
And he was just loving that answer. He was just, I'll call you doctor. But that's what I want him to say when this is the man like talking about my heart. Just call him God, okay?
Just agree with the guy.
We can't call anyone God, right? But oh my God, they have this complex. This exists.
Really?
It's a real thing.
I don't know if I've ever met a cardiologist. We're going to have to make some appointments.
I can take you to my appointment. It's in like 3 weeks. Let's go. He's on.
I'm going to dress up like your boyfriend.
Let's do it.
I'm going to cosplay it and just be like, hey, God, what's up?
You want to see a neurologist? Because I got to go to UCLA in like 6 weeks. So you let me know. I'm going to need a ride.
I've seen a few of those, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to need a ride. So you're going to have to let me know about this.
I'll be the Courtney Uber.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't know. People really liked him. I mean, it seems like, yeah, even though he had a reputation for kind of screwing over women, professionally, it was completely separate. Everybody liked him. Everybody respected him. The same way that Herman was really liked by everybody, he won over Jean immediately. She was smitten with him. He was successful. He was worldly. He was everything that she was looking for when she left her husband. On the other side, Herman was also really impressed with how intelligent Jean was and how sophisticated she was. They didn't live near each other at the time, but instead of visiting each other's hometowns, Herman actually began taking Jean on vacations and trips, and they were traveling together to spend time together.
And I wonder if this was just like, vacation Herman and vacation Jean get together and have a great time. Or if, he's just taking her along.
Yeah, I feel like it would be easier to fall in love if it's the vacation version of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's called 90 Day Fiancé.
I've never watched it.
Start.
But it's starring Jean and Herman.
Yeah, but it's the thought of like, the best you is put forward on vacation and stuff. It's fun. Spontaneous, and then you get home and it's like they're a stockbroker and they're up and they eat this every day and and then oh my God, it sets in. But they seem like Jean always seems way more into Herman to me. But I don't know, we don't really know Herman. It's weird. All we know is he likes to fuck and he's an asshole.
Right.
But he's a great cardiologist.
Yes. So we know 3 things. And that's pretty much seems like there's all there is to know about him. Not to be a jerk, but it seems like he's kind of just a simple man.
I say take the trip to Sandals.
And then see what he's like.
Why not?
Get that little one braid in the back of the hair.
Done. Sold. Was that UB40 playing in the background?
Some steel drums. It's an easy place to fall in love,
Just drinks with pineapple.
So however it happened, they definitely fell in love while they were on these vacations together. They began this really romantic vacation and it kind of just never ended, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then they just began this long-distance relationship after that.
And that makes it easy to remain vacation Jean and vacation Herman for a long time.
Because you're caught up in always seeing, 1, the best version of each other, and 2, missing each other, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't see them on a bad day.
Mm-hmm. So being a college-educated divorcee in a long-distance relationship with a man and not really dropping everything to marry him was kind of a progressive attitude for the time that they were together, Again, this was many decades ago, so it wasn't really in line with societal views of how people were supposed to basically just meet, date, marry, kids, retire, die together.
I feel like she probably dodged a lot of that just because she was a little older. She'd already had her kids.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think she did. But if you were, younger than that, yeah, you're going to be looked at kind of weird. Mm-hmm. Like, well, why don't you want kids? Why aren't you married? Isn't your goal in life to be a parent? To have a womb filled? No.
Right.
Or like, did that.
Yeah, done.
Now it's about this.
Mm-hmm.
Elevated status.
Yeah.
That's what this is about now.
Right. So within 6 months of being together, Herman, or Hi as she called him, proposed to Jean. And she said yes, but she explained that she wanted to wait, especially since her kids were almost done with school, and she figured like she should at least maintain some consistency for them. And then once the year was over, they could get married and move in.
Makes sense to me.
So Herman agreed to wait. And in fact, Herman loved that she was so independent and that they could kind of be a little bit separate, you know? But beyond that, Herman seemed to view this as kind of permission to see other women. And he possibly believed that Jean was kind of a look the other way kind of woman, or was just kind of being okay with being together, but not together.
I kind of think that's part of where the vacations come in too, is like, we're together, like, look at what I take you here, I buy this for you, I do this. Right. It's okay if I still see A, B, and C on the side.
Right.
It's like the
but look at all this time we spend together and we love each other, and that's what matters.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. But I mean, I don't know. She's ambitious. She's got a lot to do.
Yeah.
So like maybe she's cool with him having all this on the side because she's busy too.
Yeah, we don't really know.
No, there's nothing about that really. Like if she sees anyone else on the side.
Yeah.
Because she's 264 miles away.
I feel like she was really in love with Herman to the point where I don't think she would want to be with anyone else.
I agree.
You know? But it does seem like they both liked the fact that they had these separate lives.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, we all get sick with people when we spend too much time with them, right?
Yep. That's the truth.
So eventually, Jean went back to Herman and said she was ready. You know, once her kids were finished with school, she's like, okay, I'm ready to get married. But he replied that he was now not ready to be married, and he ended their engagement.
I wonder if that's just kind of like, you know, he had like a flippant moment where he's like, I want to marry you, Jean. And so he throws it out to her and she's like, no. And he's like, whew, thank God, right?
Right.
But then
maybe.
But then she comes back with it and she's like, okay, I'm ready. And he's just like, oh shit, I forgot I even mentioned that.
Right.
Right? Just like, oh, damn it.
It's like that one day on the beach where she's got her hair braided. She's walking out of the water
that's
like Bo Derek or something. And he's like, marry me.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's exactly where it happened.
Yeah.
With the sun glistening off the top of his head. No doubt.
I totally thought you were going to talk about her cleavage or something. But no, definitely his head.
It's there. It's there. And he's putting it between her legs and shit.
Right.
Woo! Marry me, Jean. You know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that goes. But at some point, he wants to marry her.
Right. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't. Of course, which is
I don't
heartbreaking,
know.
Right?
I guess. Yeah, it is. Because when she wants it, now it's taken away.
Yeah.
So you can't have what you
Very disappointing to
want.
her.
And she is about getting what she wants.
Yeah.
So, of course, she sticks it out.
Herman even encouraged her to see other people.
Which is so insulting.
Yes. Like, okay, let's not get married, but like, just break up with me.
It's I want you to break up with me because I'm too chicken shit to break up with you.
Yeah, it's
like
real
a consolation
move.
prize. Totally.
Yeah.
It's very cold-hearted.
Yeah.
Which is what we've heard again and again about Herman.
Yeah, I feel like he can just flip his emotions on and off.
Does seem that way.
And of course, that's probably really confusing for that person's partner.
To someone who is so emotional and high-strung to begin with. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so great with like reading what people are saying for what it is. Might constantly be like, what does that really mean? You know? So, I mean,
I feel like when you are that person, you're going to read extra into it and be like, okay, well, he means this.
Yeah.
He wants to still be with me, blah, blah, blah. But when reality is, he just said what he wanted. He told you to see other people. He's moving on.
Very clearly, yeah.
Yeah. But if you're an emotional person and you're going to like read the fuck out of everything that everyone says, then you're probably thinking there's something else behind it. And I think that's clearly what she did.
And she was a journaler.
Yes.
So there's like trunks, steamer trunks, like Titanic shit full of journals, just scrawled. Perfect penmanship and always spelled correctly. I mean, it's Jean.
Yes.
But I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure she had a lot to say about it. Even though Jean wasn't seeing anyone else, contrary to what he had encouraged her to do, Herman clearly had many other side dalliances, and some of them were more serious than others. But since they were long distance, he really didn't feel that anything needed to change.
Why would it? Herman gets anything he wants. Herman's got it all. It's going on for Herman. He's like in his 60s. It's the other thing, by the way.
Yeah, I don't even know if I mentioned his age.
60's the new 20 in this one.
Yeah, he's getting it. He's out there in the streets.
This is pre-Viagra.
Mm-hmm.
ED wasn't even a thing. It was just like education.
It was definitely a thing.
Okay,
Come on.
It didn't have a name, I guess, right? And like when you hear the commercial now,
it didn't have a name and a treatment.
Needs discreetly. I don't know if he had the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. So Jean continued to play this role of the adoring girlfriend, and she gave him a bunch of gifts, took care of him, hosted dinner parties for him, but he never really reciprocated Jean's kindness. So she was clearly putting herself in that role, but he wasn't really doing any boyfriend stuff for her anymore.
No, she's emotionally invested and he's not.
So friends say it seems like Herman was using Jean to have someone kind of like successful and bright on his arm at social events, but really with no intention of ever taking the relationship seriously.
I believe that.
Yeah. And Jean, she remained in constant denial about how she wasn't really a priority to Herman anymore. And she pretended to kind of be okay with everything because she did care about him. And she thought, even though that's all she could get, that was kind of enough.
It sounds like she's, a lot of it is I don't want to make waves.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I start something, it's long distance. It's super easy to just cut you off at this point.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like if she spoke up and advocated for herself, he would just cut it off.
It's over. He already said he doesn't want to marry you.
Right. So they went on to do this. Look, this seems something I could do for maybe a week, right? Like, I would lose my fucking mind.
Every time I hear the number, wait, huh?
Right. 14 years.
14 years this cycle went on.
I could not imagine. That's a huge amount of time. And they were just kind of accepting each other's lifestyles and kind of like, she just accepted he wasn't going to marry her. But they went on vacations together. They, exchanged expensive gifts, whatever it was. But nothing was really progressing and moving forward in the relationship.
Herman didn't want it to.
No. So she became kind of depressed, and Herman prescribed her an amphetamine named Dasoxin, as well as barbiturates. Jean received regular prescriptions for amphetamines because she had fatigue and stress. But basically, it seemed like she was just kind of sad. That's my interpretation.
These were also all prescribed by Herman.
Right. So he was just trying to like put a Band-Aid on the fact that she's like, hey, this sucks. And he's like, here, take some pills.
He's got this highly emotional, high-strung woman. Just shut her up with some prescriptions.
Right.
I guess. And like she's complaining she's tired. Here's some pills. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he's probably just like, I don't want to have an emotional conversation with you.
Yeah, what do you need? Okay.
Let me just give you drugs.
Pick them up tomorrow.
Right. So, of course, now she's taking all these pills, and she unknowingly becomes addicted to multiple medications. And it's, of course, through the course of her entire relationship with him and all these things that he's prescribing her that she just turns into an addict.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's just periods of time. She needs uppers. Sometimes she needs downers. Sometimes they're just counteracting each other. And she thinks she's tired, but she's really just fucking exhausted from meth psychosis.
Right. Yeah.
She's up for days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit.
I can only imagine. And I don't necessarily think of her as a very worldly or like street savvy kind of. I don't think she would know that an addiction is developing. You know what I mean? Like, I think she wouldn't have the wherewithal to be like, oh shit, like, oh, I'm actually physically addicted to these.
Yeah, perfect example of somebody that becomes addicted to something without like even realizing it, which is hard for me to understand. Yeah, to be honest.
Yeah,
I've known when I was like addicted to something.
You feel the claws just like gripping into your body.
That's what we're doing it for.
Right.
I mean, what the hell? So to be unknowingly addicted blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, but I really, truly...
But it happens.
Yeah, I see her as that person
she
that
is
it
that
happened
person.
to.
Especially during this time.
Yes.
Because we didn't have,
Yes, I do
Walter
agree.
White in the RV.
Right. The time period makes it much easier.
Gene Harris is the face of the Walter White. Back then. I know he's not using it. He's just making it. But anyway.
Right. Just kind of getting into it.
It just has a
unknowingly.
name. And it's Desoxin. Because that's the one that comes back again and again is this drug called Desoxin.
Yeah. I've never really heard of it outside of Gene Harris.
I looked pretty hard into this one. And it was just one of these amphetamines that was just prescribed
just a random
like nothing.
mommy's
like
little helper.
cocaine and shit in those old tonics.
Yes.
It's just, oh yeah, that.
Right.
That was acceptable.
So as this addiction is developing, what's going on with Herman is that now it's the 70s and he has decided to hire a new secretary. And she is a 37-year-old woman named Lynne Tryforos. And she's 30 years younger than him and 20 years younger than Gene. Soon after hiring her, of course, we all know where this is going. The two of them start dating. And Herman really didn't put much effort into trying to hide the relationship.
He didn't have to.
No.
Gene wasn't going anywhere.
So Gene's relationship was in trouble, but professionally, she was advancing. And she was really thrilled when she became the headmistress of this prestigious boarding school called the Madeira School for Girls in Virginia. But from the start, Gene was having trouble at work, and she seemed to be kind of distracted by her personal life. So Gene was preoccupied by the fact that Lynn and Herman were not hiding their relationship. So for example, Lynn purchased an ad in the New York Times wishing Herman a happy birthday. So she would basically pretty much mark her territory and make Gene seem less important.
That's got to be rough for Gene.
Right?
She knows a lot of people reading the Times.
And she's the one on his arm at all these events. And now all of a sudden there's this young secretary that's like, happy birthday, Herman.
Exactly.
Right. And while Lynn was kind of trying to do that, Herman wasn't really helping because he was not keeping Lynn a secret at all. He would take her to all these parties and even in front of Gene's friends, which basically humiliated her.
Terrible.
And of course, you know, a high society kind of woman like this, her reputation is everything. What people know of her is everything to her.
Page 6 is all that matters.
That's it. So she is completely humiliated.
At this time, she's in Virginia, so she's just kind of hearing through the grapevine that, like, oh, these two are doing this together. I saw them here. I saw them doing this. And then, like, the Times is... It probably took her a couple days to find out that this had even been printed. But when she does, it's from these exact society people whose parties she went to. And they're just like, oh, by the way, I don't know if you know about this, but there's a full-page ad in the Times.
In case you haven't heard, one of your, you know, fake friends that you care everything about their opinion is telling you these things about your boyfriend. It just really ruined her, I'm sure. In addition to all this public perception, he's also taking her on vacations, spending holidays with Lynn, like the whole nine. So even though Gene's effectively his girlfriend, according to Gene, they're really not together when he's with Lynn, right?
Yeah.
So some people say that Herman actively pit Gene and Lynn against each other to kind of make them compete for his attention.
I believe that completely.
Yeah.
Especially because of what other women said about him.
Right. That was kind of one of the things that he used, this little tactic to make himself feel more important.
He didn't care about their feelings.
No.
At all. He was cold-hearted.
I feel like they were a means to an end for him. He just
agree.
wanted some sort of like boost for his own ego.
Revolving door.
Yeah.
Didn't really matter, I don't think.
Yeah. So Gene, of course, saw Lynn as this new rival for Herman's affection. And even though he had seen other people, Lynn was a real threat. And this began to make Gene really jealous and insecure. So adding to this insecurity was the fact that Herman had begun writing a book, which of course diverted even more of his attention away from Gene. So, like we saw with Betty Broderick, of course, the way to fix this is to get involved with that project. So Gene offers to help out with writing the book.
Of course.
Herman provided the science for this book and the medicine, the research, all the stuff that it was in his wheelhouse. And Jean wrote recipes and anecdotes, which made it a little bit less clinical, a little bit more warm and approachable for kind of that demographic of women that he was going for. So in 1978, Herman published the Scarsdale Diet book, which is similar to the Atkins diet, but really not very sustainable long term. So the meal plans were basically like these 800 to 1,000 calorie a day kind of diets, just like all diet soda, cottage cheese, grapefruits, sugar replacers, all that shit.
Sounds like fun. Just sounds like nothing but a great time. Now, I know that the other thing about this Scarsdale, New York diet is that because he's working as a cardiologist in Scarsdale in this little community, he kind of used his practice as like a control group for this diet to try it out with cardiology patients and see what kind of happened. And so this diet book was really a result of that study that went on in Scarsdale, New York. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he had the science behind it, but he was not exactly warm and fuzzy. Jean, highly emotional Jean, can come in and make it a little easier to read.
Right. A little bit more palatable, especially, like I said, for women. For the key demographic, they needed to hear this from a woman's voice because he's just all numbers, science, boring shit.
And this book was so popular.
Yes.
I mean, this crossed, just all lines. Everybody bought it. But it definitely is something looking back on that is not going to be a long-term goal choice.
No.
If you need to drop a ton of weight fast, just like Atkins.
Yeah.
It's just that,
It's a crash diet.
That's what it is.
It's a very temporary crash diet.
Yeah.
So Jean was an integral part of researching the book, and she was shocked when she was only mentioned in the acknowledgments section.
That's a burn.
So the book sold over 3 million copies, and Herman became basically a celebrity doctor, like Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz.
This is before Amazon. This is before pre-orders. Right. All that stuff. This is like no Barnes and Nobles, as far as I know. I mean, it's just going to be little local bookstores.
Yes.
And just word of mouth. This diet works for me. Try it. And then I'm sure he went on the big 3 channels, did some shows.
Yeah.
But this was word of mouth. 3 million copies is nothing to sneeze at.
So the issues, of course, in Jean and Herman's relationship only got worse now that his career was more demanding and, of course, he was still seeing other women. So Jean was particularly upset about Lynn because even though he saw other women casually, Lynn was a long-term girlfriend at this point, and he clearly cared about her a lot more than these other women. And therefore, she was more of a threat to Jean. But Lynn, on the other hand, was also threatened by Jean. And the two, of course, began competing for him, and they were making various attacks against each other. Jean began getting these harassing phone calls from both a male and a female. And the calls criticized Jean's age, they made fun of her looks, and sometimes they even described Herman basically having sex with other women.
This seems like, at first I was like, what is the motivation here with this bullshit?
What's the end game?
Just a cat fight.
Yeah.
And he loves it.
He's eating it up.
Every second of this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just going back and forth. And I mean, goddamn, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's so much work. So ridiculous.
I don't have the energy for that shit.
I don't either. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I could find some energy to fuck a bitch up. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot for this person.
Herman?
For Herman. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, for Herman. I don't know. He just doesn't sound like the biggest catch that we're doing all this for.
I know. Yeah, it seems a little weird. But, of course, when Jean began getting those phone calls, then she's going to retaliate.
Well, you have to.
Like, what do you expect me to do?
Come
Just,
on.
Chill out about it and say fuck it and walk away?
Nope.
No. My name's Jean Harris. I'm here to fuck shit up.
That's right.
So then Lynn began getting obscene phone calls in return. So she responded by smearing excrement on one of the dresses that Jean left at Herman's house.
Such a bizarre thing to do, by the way, to me.
Oh my God, yes.
And we saw this with Betty Broderick, too.
So weird.
Why are we just smearing shit on stuff? we've got to consult with our psychologist because there's something to that.
There's something to poop.
It's like arson and serial killer childhood.
Right.
There's something with poop.
Yeah.
And I know, you see it again and again, and I know there's something to it. But again, like, what in the fuck is the point here? It gets under your nails.
Right. That's my thing where my head goes is I'm a visual person.
I see them doing it.
Yes, exactly. I imagine like you actually had to physically do this into a container, into your hands, something
I
to
would
actually
burn my clothes.
Put it on the dress.
The clothes I was wearing when I did this, I'd have to burn them.
They're done.
I'd have to bathe in bleach of some sort.
Absolutely.
I would want my skin on my hands to peel.
Yes. Yes.
Chemical burns, fine. Just part of the
I wouldn't feel never clean ever again.
I would never tell anyone ever.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, what the fuck?
Never ever. Can you imagine having a friend just being like, I'm real mad about this situation, so I shit on someone's dress? Who would ever react to that? Like, oh yeah, girl, that's the right thing to do. Good move.
Lynn? I don't know. That's where I get, I wish we were televised. My face, I can't understand.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Which makes me feel okay about myself.
Yeah, I think I'm doing all right because I've never been so upset that I'm like, let me shit on my hand and put it on something. So I'm doing okay in life is all I'm saying.
It's no good.
So Jean responded by prank calling Lynn every day for a month, which hardly seems even. Like, you shit on my dress. You know what I mean? It's a shit for shit situation,
but see,
right?
Lynn seems like when they go low, we go high.
Right.
She seems like one of those that would be like, oh, this childish woman.
Right. It's so immature of you.
So immature of you. I graduated magna cum laude of college. Right? I don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Lynn changed her number like 5 times, but Jean kept getting it. And I don't know how. She's got to have some sort of cop friend or something, right? Someone who works for the DMV.
Yeah, high society friends in New York. I think that's all the FBI you need.
Right.
Yeah.
They can get all the information.
Married to someone that works somewhere.
You're right. So in addition to fighting with Lynn, Jean was also really heartbroken that Herman had recently taken Lynn to this huge event where he received a Lifetime Achievement Award. This is probably like the equivalent of being demoted for Jean.
Yeah.
Because she was the girlfriend. She's going to all the events. And then all of a sudden, he takes Lynn.
Yeah.
That's got to be huge. That's got to be some sort of big shift.
I don't wonder if it wasn't like Herman trying to send her a message too.
Yeah, that's
time
true.
to move on, Jean. But then, the asshole's going to have sex with her every chance he gets.
Right.
So it's like, these are mixed messages. Because she really takes, the sexual relationship as like, he loves me, he cares about me, and he knows that.
Yeah, he's using that to his advantage for sure.
For 14 years they did this. And, she's at fault. She stayed with this guy.
Yeah.
But for 14 years, they went back and forth on this bullshit.
It's a long fucking
Lynn was
time.
only around for like 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Herman and Jean had a huge fight over this, of course. And they were on very bad terms by about March 1980. And when they fell out, of course, Herman, who was her main supplier, stopped sending her prescriptions. He was the connect, and all of a sudden he was gone. So Jean started experiencing these withdrawals and probably wasn't even sure what they were because she doesn't know much about addiction, I'm assuming.
Part of me wonders, though, also like, maybe she knew a little bit more than we think because she continues to take them and stuff. But then, like, you stop and all of a sudden now you feel like you're going to die. Mm-hmm. There is probably something to that. However, she's super high strung all the time. They say this again and again. So she might take this to another degree.
Maybe.
But I think she's just having massive drug withdrawals from like the last decade.
Right. And not knowing how to interpret that.
She's unknowingly addicted.
Yeah. So while Jean was experiencing some of this heartache with her relationship and these drug addiction withdrawals, she was also having challenges in her professional life. So Jean got this performance review at Madeira School where she got some negative marks and the board recommended her dismissal. Like it was that severe.
Seems like it's probably a big deal if they just went straight to dismissing. Unless she's now had a pattern with all the drug use.
Right.
There's probably a lot of weird shit's gone on with Jean.
I'm thinking.
You think she had like the shits and sweats like in the middle of English class? And they're just like, what's wrong with our teacher? The fuck? Or one's like, I know exactly what's wrong with our teacher.
I wonder how transparent it actually was, where everybody but Jean knew.
Could have been fun to be a student.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
You know, I have no idea.
So on March 7th, 1980, Jean had also caught a few girls with marijuana. And although they were fantastic students, she chose to really discipline them harshly and actually expelled them. Even though, from what I've heard, all they had were basically stems and seeds.
This was bullshit to me.
Yes.
Because I believe it was also a boarding school. Mm-hmm. So these girls lived there.
Yeah. So she just kicked them out altogether. It's not like
they just brought weed on campus for recess or, a third period or something. They lived there, okay?
Right.
I don't want some fucking weed. Like, this is the least of our worries. Our teacher's on fucking serious drugs.
Right.
The least we could do is smoke.
We need this because now we deal with
Because I don't know what the hell is going to happen tomorrow. I might fucking get expelled.
So, of course, it was severe. Everybody knew it was severe. And the next day, March 8th, the parents of those girls she expelled demanded that she be disciplined. And they actually requested that she possibly be fired for the way that she handled the situation. And she's already on thin ice because of her review.
That's right.
So along with the parents, many students were actually protesting, and they were staging these sit-ins because they were so upset with how Jean handled the weed situation. And this devastated Jean. Of course, teaching was her life, so it was huge to her. And she felt a huge responsibility to the girls at the school. But she was starting to kind of show these cracks in her mental state, mostly due to her drug use.
I kept reading that she was not viewed as so much like a teacher. Again, they lived there. Mm-hmm. She was a mentor. She was someone you could go to.
Yeah.
So if they had been smoking weed, they could have been like, hey, Mrs. Harris. I feel like they could have probably gone to her. She wouldn't have freaked out. So then for her to act so completely opposite of what they think they know of her, especially being someone they can go to, I think that is part of why this was such a betrayal to these girls.
I think they trusted her.
That's what it is.
And all of a sudden, she's just like, no, you're out.
Yeah.
And they don't know that she's just kind of a new Jean now that she's withdrawing. So she's probably a little bit more anxious, a little bit more angry.
And she's already having issues. So maybe she's like, well, I have to take a hard stand on drug use.
Right.
Because if I don't, they're going to fire me for this other shit I did.
Right.
So, I mean, it's weird. But yeah, everybody says that she was like the one to go to, the favorite teacher, all that stuff.
Yeah. And people around this time noted that there was a change in her demeanor. She was really approachable before. Everybody talked to her before. But then all of a sudden, she became kind of despondent and distant and kind of shut down. And of course, we know she's coming off of drugs, but nobody else knew that. They just know that her behavior changed.
And in a come down state, she's realizing that her and Herman are done. So she's like desperate thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And her colleagues just thought she was probably stressed and upset about everything that was going on at the school. But they didn't know she was also going through the breakup, coming off the drugs, the whole 9 yards. So one of the last straws for Jean was on March 8th, a day after all this weed drama, when her very favorite student wrote her a letter expressing her anger for how Jean handled the situation. And at this point, kind of this combination of her professional turmoil, the chemical dependency, this affair with Lynn, it started to get the best of her. And over the weekend, Jean decided to write her own letter to Herman, which basically outlined all these ways that he had broken her heart.
She feels wronged by Herman, too.
Complete betrayal.
Yeah.
So even though Jean knew Herman was juggling both women for years, and she'd previously seemed kind of begrudgingly to accept the setup, she suddenly became very upset about it, and she decided she needed to confront him about all his mistakes.
This is going to go well.
So in the letter, she begged Herman to treat her differently, and kind of stick up for Jean when Lynn ruined her belongings and stole her jewelry and called her and all that stuff. She wanted him to take her side in the fight between Lynn and Jean. But, of course, like, she's in shambles at this point. And after sending the letter, Jean became very suicidal and decided also to write out a will. So she's in kind of like end mode, right?
I think despondent is a pretty good word.
Yeah. So after this entire weekend of emotional turmoil resulting from all these challenges kind of on top of each other, Jean suddenly has this moment of clarity. And she calls Herman to tell him to destroy the letter when it arrives. She's embarrassed of everything and wants to kind of shut it down. Jean decides after that she wants to destroy the letter herself. And she just needs to go see Herman and talk to him in person before she kills herself.
Just so you know, if you ever call me and say, don't open that letter that's going to come to you, it's fucking getting opened.
Immediately on site. I'm waiting at the mailbox.
Yeah, I've been there.
I've been there when the phone rang.
Yeah, since you told me. Because I'm already waiting for some other fucking weird shit coming to me in the mail probably. So, yeah, I'm opening it.
But she knew that, which is why she had the foresight to be like, yeah, I gotta go see Herman in person.
But this is also funny to me because this is the text you don't mean to send.
Right? And you can't get it back.
This is what you would have to do, say, before a text message, right? She's like, oh my God, I put a stamp on it. I walked into the mailbox. I put it in the thing. I opened it. I closed it. And now 4 days go by and you're like, what have I done? Now this all happens in 13.2 milliseconds.
Right?
Isn't
the
insane?
Regret that sets in.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. At least we don't have to go retrieve letters nowadays.
Yeah.
It's just immediate apology mode.
Yeah. No kidding.
So when she realizes she has to go get this letter in person, she knows he's going to just open it right away, like you said. Like,
fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's going to open his letter.
So she drives 264 miles from Virginia to New York and goes to get the letter. So this is Monday, March 10th, 1980. And on this drive, she brings her .32 revolver in her purse. That's the part where it gets a little fishy.
A little sketch. I did a little bit of map. What is it called now? Google Maps. I'm like, MapQuest.
Were you about to say
MapQuest? Let me print this out for you. Print the MapQuest.
You want to go get the Thomas guide?
Yo, I had one of those.
I know you did, yo.
Yeah, I can't stop this. When I turned 16, one of the first things I did was go get a freaking sun shield for the Saturn and a Thomas guide to put in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
I looked into this. 264 miles in 5 hours is a pretty normal for that speed, that distance.
So she wasn't driving like 110 or something crazy?
No, it wasn't the astronaut that drove cross country to go fuck up her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Again, an adultery story.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a murder though, so we can't cover that one yet. But this would be like from LA to Fresno. A little past Fresno.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
reasonable as far as speed and yeah.
It is, because when I heard like, I gotta get this letter, get my gun, and get in the car, right?
Right.
I mean, that sounds fucking impulsive and crazy. But she was just kind of just coming along.
Yeah.
Speed limit in it, probably.
But even I feel like this is so Jean in the sense that, of course, she would just drive the speed limit.
She's reasonable. You understand.
She's
a lady.
Yeah. Put together.
Yeah. There's probably gloves in the glove compartment.
She's got driving gloves for sure. Yep. So Jean says basically she just went there because she wanted to talk to him one last time. And then she wanted to ask him to kill her. And if he didn't, then she would kill herself. That's what she says happened.
This is drug withdrawal thinking.
I think it's very far-fetched to think that that would be even possible, that he would do that. And I don't know if that means that that's the drugs talking that would make her think that that's possible, or I don't know.
I don't really have an answer because I just think it's nuts. Like, it's going to take a lot. Even the letter would be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
yeah.
I'm not doing this. I'm barely getting off the couch.
Right. I don't even know if I would have driven because I'm just like, yeah, I'll just apologize for that. Right? Like, I can take the hit. I can take it on the chin and be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I fucked up. I'm embarrassed. I can write a second letter and tell you that I'm sorry.
I would bet you Herman was really done, is what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah.
Because he was down to write prescriptions for a long time. And then when he stopped doing that, it's like, that's real. That's real done. And then she writes this letter, and now it's like, what does he have to lose? He's got Lynn, and she realizes she just fucking blew it.
Yeah, that's true.
She's got to get in that car.
Yeah, she's got no choice.
Because she can't text him. The fastest would be to call him, but like, I'm sure it's an ungodly hour.
Her friends say that she was most likely trying to make some sort of grand gesture for attention, and she was hoping that he would just get back together with her after.
Because that's how it usually works after like a suicide attempt in public.
Right?
They come running back.
Yeah.
Didn't you know?
It seems far-fetched, but it seems like the people closest to her said that seemed likely, that she was trying to do that, which I guess says a lot about her.
Right?
So she arrived at Herman's estate after 10 p.m., coming in through the garage. When Jean entered the bedroom, she noticed that Lynn's lingerie and her hair rollers and her makeup were right in the open. So she had recently been there. So Herman was awakened from his sleep and allegedly yelled, "Jesus, Jean, you're crazy. Get out of here."
I know that that's a direct quote from Jean.
Right.
This is what Herman said. "Jesus, Jean, you're crazy. Get out of here."
It sounds
like
very dramatic, like 1930s kind of movie.
It also kind of sounds like she has him calling her crazy. She can be like, "He called me crazy.
Yeah.
He hurt my feelings. Herman's so cold-hearted." But I do like this, like, Dick Tracy 1930s side of it.
That's what I think. Like, that's what it sounds like to me. Like, "Jesus, Jean, you're crazy. Get out of here." You know? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's what I hear.
Yep, I got it. I'm there.
Right?
Mentally, I'm with it. With you on this one.
So Jean claims that she went to shoot herself, but when she lifted the gun up to her head, Herman grabbed it and it shot through Herman's hand, causing him to drop the gun. So she got freaked out by how much blood came out, and Herman went to rinse off his hand. Then Jean grabbed the gun again and pointed it at her head. So Herman took the gun again, and he buzzed his housekeeper to call 911. So again, Jean grabbed the gun and they struggled. With her thinking that it was kind of pointed towards her, she pulled the trigger. And it shot him in the chest and the kidney and the shoulder.
This sounds like a really wild struggle of someone who's really like exasperated and kind of annoyed. Like to me, like Herman shot in the hand and he's like, "Oh, damn it. Jean, you're crazy."
Right.
And he starts to rinse his hand off. So there's time to like get up, walk around. She's probably sitting on the bed, head in her hands. "Oh my God, I can't believe what I've done."
And he thinks it's over.
And he's just grabbing that gun from her repeatedly, again and again, back from her. Making phone calls to the housekeeper with the gun in his hand because she's just acting crazy. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't know that it's really as like morbid and dark. I feel like it might have been something more just like, "Oh my God, she's here. She's acting nuts."
Yeah.
And he's just trying to like be a dad almost. Like, "What are you doing, Jean?
Right.
Give me that gun."
Kind of just control the situation.
That's it. Control
kind
the
of
situation.
keep it in line.
Yeah. I
don't think either one of them kind of saw it progressing like that.
If he gets shot in the hand, he's not thinking like she's going to kill me at this point immediately because he goes to wash his hand. Yeah. He doesn't just go like, "Let me make sure I'm watching you all the time. The gun's in my hand pointed at you now."
Right. If he was in fear for his life,
he's not afraid of her.
He would just go away, just call 911, like whatever the steps would be to get away from her. But he's staying there, trying to get the gun from her, trying to wash his hand. It seems like he just knew she was kind of out of touch with reality and was just trying to make sure the situation didn't escalate.
Might have been expecting something like this.
I don't know.
Maybe not her to show up and do all this, but some sort of grand gesture. Because everyone says that seemed normal for her.
After he's shot a few times, Jean again put the gun to her head, and then the gun didn't go off. So Jean starts banging the gun against the bathtub several times, but she's unable to unload and reload the gun. Therefore, she's unable to shoot herself. So she went to the phone to call 911, and there was no dial tone. So she said to Herman as she left the room, "I think the phone is broken." And Herman replied, "You're probably right. And Jean just left and went in the car to just drive away and get help.
She's just not thinking clearly.
No. So Jean, seems to have fled the scene, but Herman's housekeeper had already called the police after hearing the gunshots. So as Jean's driving away, she passes these police cars headed towards his house. So she turns around and follows the police back to the home. Once she gets there, she immediately tells them that she shot Herman and that he needs help. So there's no question from the time that they arrive at the scene who did it and how it happened. Herman didn't die right away, and Jean said that if he'd gotten to the hospital sooner, then he would have lived. But the cops, quote, bungled it.
Sounds so Jean to me.
Right? Bungled it.
Them coppers.
It took 30 minutes for Herman to actually finally get medical attention. And with that delay, 69-year-old Herman died of the gunshot wounds. I think there's just, again, a lack of responsibility. He never would have even been in danger if you hadn't shot him.
Yeah, the cops didn't bungle this. You shot this man.
Yeah. I think it's weird that people don't understand personal responsibility.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
a good valid point.
When Jean was arrested, she had extra ammunition in her pocket, which the police claimed indicated that her intention was homicide, not suicide.
I don't know. She might have been a Girl Scout. Be prepared.
Always be prepared.
Always. Even with your bullets.
Even with your bullets.
Which is insane, Jean, that you got them in your pocket still.
But Jean insisted that this death was accidental, and it was due to the struggle for the gun, basically.
I can see her thinking that makes sense.
But also, she brought a gun to his house.
Well, yeah.
And drove across state lines.
Right? Several.
So, I don't know. It's just a real lack of understanding that she had done this,
Yeah.
So detectives say that one shot could have been accidental, but the additional shots, of course, suggest intent for murder.
I do think, though, that she could, just keep insisting that, well, I had the gun to my head. I had the gun to my head. I was trying to kill myself, which might not be not true. But no, Jean, you brought a gun to his house after you drove 5 hours in a reasonable speed limit.
Right?
Because it was probably only it was much less than 65 on the freeway, I bet, at that time.
Yeah.
Because 65 didn't happen until 95.
It's weird that you know that off the top of your head.
I know that because my dad moved to Las Vegas and was like, don't worry, you guys can come visit all the time faster because the speed limit just went up 10 miles per hour. So you can get here faster. I'll never forget that.
So Jean was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, and she pled not guilty. So Jean was released on $80,000 bail that was raised by her brothers and sisters, and she was taken in for psychiatric evaluation.
It's about time.
Come on. She needed a mental health professional years earlier that could have helped her out with this stuff.
A lot of things could have been avoided.
It's crazy. Jean's attorneys pleaded with her to basically plead guilty to a lesser charge, but Jean wouldn't admit guilt to killing Herman because she didn't see her actions as murder. Her defense attorneys argued that Jean had become completely dependent on Herman, and for whatever reason, Jean was really upset about Herman's affair, as she viewed it, with Lynn, and this one really bothered her. They said that exhaustion and menopausal hormones and the overall difficulties of being a hysterical woman were at the heart of what drove Jean to kill Herman. But Jean refused to let her attorneys use the drug addiction as a defense. So she was okay with all those other facts coming out about her. But she was like, I will not admit publicly to taking pills.
And this makes me wonder if also, maybe there was some sort of hang up with Jean about drug abuse. That, why she went so hard for those girls over, stems and seeds of weed. And then, cannot have the stigma herself, even though she was being prescribed. And this also tells you that, she really didn't think of those as addictive drugs. Mm-hmm. It was medicine.
Medicine.
Yeah.
Yep. The defense attorneys did not call any mental health professionals who treated Jean to testify. Jean insisted on testifying in her own defense, which went terribly because she seemed to be really arrogant and she came off as quick-tempered and kind of became this unsympathetic witness. She did herself no favors.
Jean on the witness stand Jean really being interviewed is pretty good because she's very just aggressive.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. And you don't expect it to come out of her because she kind of looks like grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden she's just really harsh and very dramatic. Oh my God. Oh, don't even ask that. Like,
yeah.
Really over the top. Everything is to the nth degree. And on that stand, she gets pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a bad look for somebody who's trying to come off as a calm,
rational.
I just snapped once, he did this to me and I snapped. And it's like, well, you've been a pain in the ass.
Right.
We can tell.
Yes. Her testimony went so badly that her attorneys were even publicly criticized for not preparing her better and kind of softening her edges to make her more likable and sympathetic. It seems like they could have done a lot of prep work with her.
Yeah, probably just one mock-up.
One.
Just one would have been better than what they did.
But I mean, it seemed like everyone knew that they could have just done a better job with prepping her.
She was a difficult client, though.
Well,
she's a very difficult client.
You're right.
So you can only do with what you're given.
The prosecution claimed that Jean had shot Herman in his sleep, and the injury to his hand was from when he woke up and basically tried to defend himself against the subsequent shots. Prosecuting attorneys also read Jean's 10-page letter to the jury, which must have been bad, of course, because we knew she drove cross state lines to retrieve it.
Oh, she needed it.
Yeah.
She needed that back.
The letter had been written in those 2 days prior to Herman's murder, and it was filled with anger and hatred and foul language, and it really painted her in a bad light. So the trial lasted 14 weeks. It's a long time.
It's 1 week for every year. I mean, I just keep coming. 14 years we did this.
It was one of the longest trials in that state's history.
I bet.
I mean, so the jury deliberated for 8 days, and Jean was found guilty of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 15 years to life.
I wonder about that again, too. With she brings a gun there. Unless you have a concealed permit or you didn't need it at the time or you were known to carry a gun, I just think it's bizarre that women can just carry guns, murder people, and they get second degree.
Yeah. It does seem a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Since she was convicted of his murder, Jean was also not eligible to collect the $220,000 that Herman left her in his will. So he did write her into the will.
He did. He was gonna provide and care for her even after he died. I mean, that's some shit.
She did mean enough to him.
$220,000 in 1980 money.
Dude, I should have converted that, but I didn't. But that's a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
2 years after her sentencing, it was finally revealed that Jean had been addicted for at least 10 years to this disoxin that we talked about. This amphetamine that Herman had prescribed to her. Her son James stated that she would go for days without sleep, and her trouble with working at the school mostly stemmed from this drug dependence that we know of.
I like that her son comes and says that because it makes way more sense. Mm-hmm. And you get to know Jean a little bit better.
Yeah,
because at this point she's
eyes. Just
crazy Jean, but it's like there's something going on here.
Yeah.
The kids knew about it. So, we can't rationalize away the murder of Herman Tarnower. But,
No.
There was some problems going on here. And Jean wasn't just like a snap, I feel. But you can't just show up and kill someone.
Right.
With the gun you brought 264 miles away.
Yeah, this was a slow build, it seems like.
Yeah, the kids knew about it.
Yeah.
They saw it.
So, of course, once this new information came out, there was a lot of questions about whether Jean should receive a new trial. That was unknown information before. And since she was still heavily medicated throughout the entire process, it may have hindered her decision-making abilities, and possibly, she could have received lesser charges due to these facts, right?
Yeah, I reached out to a specialist in the field of going into jail, prison, and what you are allowed to have and not. And was told absolutely specifically there's no way that she would be allowed, even if it was prescribed, any of these medications, in prison, in jail, whatever. Now, the interesting part of this is like, okay, that's cool. But she was bailed out by her brothers and sisters.
Right.
So she's at home waiting for this trial. So that's where she was still receiving this medication.
Right.
So she'd gone through all that withdrawal. She kills him. And then I imagine an attorney says, maybe go back on it because you were relatively more normal on it. And then she goes through this trial. And then eventually she goes into jail. So she has to get off the drugs. And then you see this relatively normal woman come back and flourish.
Yeah, you would think that she would go through with the withdrawal and then come out of prison, and they say that she got psychiatric care once she was bailed out.
She left the jail and went straight to a hospital. And
that she walked into that appointment and was just like, Disoxin. Give it to me. I'm sure of it. So then she's now back on drugs.
Where are my drugs? Yeah.
Throughout the entire trial process.
Yeah.
And she's not clean again until she goes back into jail.
And the way she acted on that stand wouldn't surprise me. She would have been very different had she not been on these drugs still.
Yeah.
She was very really is a chance she could have gotten the new trial, I think. But,
But, of course, she didn't. She continued to serve her time, and that kind of all got put to bed. But during her time in prison, Jean became laser focused on improving the education system inside the prison facility where she was. She taught these parenting classes. She started programs that would enable inmates to get their GED and some college degrees. And she developed these in-prison nurseries for the babies that were born to fellow inmates.
I think it's so amazing that she just found a way to be the headmistress even in women's prison. Mm-hmm. And she saw a need and filled it. Yeah. And that was what Jean was about. And I see it how all these girls were so betrayed by Headmistress Harris because of this weed thing. And then she just takes all that and just goes straight into it with now these prison girls. And I'm sure she was a wonderful mother figure and mentor in there. And they needed her more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She found this niche and these people that she could help and continue her role as an educator and a mentor.
I think that's what she should be remembered for.
Really?
Straight up. Is like
But she's a murderer.
Oh yeah, that. Okay, wait.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Okay, yeah, she killed him. But look what she was able to do.
Yes.
While she was incarcerated. There's a lot of people who don't do shit and just drink toilet wine. Mm-hmm. And do nothing.
Well, I'm sure she did a little bit of that.
No. Remember?
I'm just kidding.
She's very anti-drug unless it's a medicine prescribed.
Yes. I don't know. Yeah, I do think that it's important to acknowledge the work she did because she obviously changed the lives of many people that she served time with.
Now,
but she also
she did
some awful things. And I think someone, she's a smart lady. Like, I feel like it just speaks volumes about addiction, and she didn't know she was an addict.
Yes, you're right.
And I feel on one hand sorry for her, and the other hand is just like, well, there's a lot of addicts that don't murder someone.
Okay,
like you have to, like you have to put it there. Like,
yeah, you do.
I've done a lot of drugs and I've never like shot someone.
Really? That's weird. Never drove.
So I don't know, but I also just think it is important to like acknowledge people that turn something really awful into positive works, not just for themselves or just like, oh, I'm going to get a degree or I'm going to do such and such.
Right.
But I'm going to actually change other people's lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for people that come after her even. Like these programs still exist.
They're still there. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So Jean also wrote an autobiography and 2 additional books while she was incarcerated. And a lot of them were stories about fellow inmates.
I really want to read this book. And at some point, I'll read this book and I'm going to report back.
Yes.
I really want to read both of them.
I know.
I'll get there.
They sound like Orange is the New Black or something.
Sounds like something I could read.
Right. So Jean also had 2 heart attacks while she was serving time in prison. Barbara Walters did several interviews over the years with Jean, and she developed the opinion that Jean should be granted clemency, as she clearly had this psychotic break, which made her kill Herman.
Now, I think a lot of this is because Barbara Walters knew the Jean after the drugs, after all. Yes. I mean, she knew her a little bit during, but she really got to know her. She had a real relationship with Jean Harris, and she knew the straight-laced headmistress Harris.
Yes.
That everyone had grown to love. She definitely saw a strong woman that did good things. She really did not see a murderer.
No.
It's clear.
I can understand how she felt like she had to help this woman.
Yeah.
Because she did only see that one side of her. Of course, Barbara started taking action on this, and she began talking to Mario Cuomo about getting clemency for Jean. So every time she ran into him in New York, she bugged the shit out of him about this.
Of course she did.
And, you know, he admits that it became annoying.
Yeah.
We know that she was constantly bringing it up.
I hate to say it, it's like every time you go out to go get a paper, Baba Wawa walks up to you and she's
right?
like, what about Jean Harris? Have you thought about her clemency I spoke to you about? And I love Barbara Walters, but some of the things you can tell.
Courtney, your impressions are on point. You are blowing my mind right now.
I'm so glad to hear that because it just happens. I don't know. And everyone kind of sounds like Betty Broderick to me. Like,
yeah, that's
in a
true.
weird way, but what are you going to do? But yeah, I could imagine Governor Cuomo got really irritated as he, states later.
Right. Yeah, she would not stop pestering about it. And soon after that, Barbara was actually told by ABC that she had to stop interviewing Jean. And she had to basically get some distance from this case because she risked losing her objectivity as a reporter, which clearly, I think it was beyond that point.
Yeah.
She got way too involved.
Way too close.
That warning was very, very kind of them.
That warning came because Cuomo called them and was like, ABC.
Get this bitch off my porch.
Stop this. Put an end to this. Yeah, exactly. Put an end to this.
Yeah. So during one of the interviews, Barbara asked Jean what she said to Herman, to which Jean admitted that she said something like, hit me again, make it hard enough to kill me, but don't put that in there.
Meaning to Barbara, it's a great interview moment.
Right.
She's just, well, it was something like, hit me hard enough. Oh, but don't put that in there.
Right.
That's exactly how it was. Just, oh my God, like head to her hand or hand to her head, just, oh, woe is me.
She's so dramatic.
So dramatic.
Yeah. In December 1992, Jean was getting ready for this quadruple bypass heart surgery when her sentence was eventually commuted by Governor Mario Cuomo. So it worked.
Side note, wouldn't it have been nice for Herman to have lived long enough to fix all your quadruple heart bypasses and fucking clemency because you're about to have another heart surgery? Right. Wouldn't it have been nice, Jean? Should have thought that through in your older age that you were going to need a cardiologist.
You gotta have the foresight.
You have
need
to.
That
speed
God
dial.
There. So she was paroled in 1993 after serving only 12 years.
And she put to use that 12 years in
she
prison.
really
I'm telling
she got
you,
some work done.
She did a lot.
In 1993, just after she was paroled, Joan Rivers gave her a golden retriever puppy when she appeared as a guest on her daytime talk show.
That's a great clip too.
Right?
Oh, she just is in tears and just holding this puppy and you just feel it. You're just like, and then you're like, oh, she's a killer.
Yeah, she's a murderer.
I keep having to come back to that.
But everybody's cute when they're holding a puppy.
Oh my God.
Even murderers.
No, it's really cute though.
So after her release, she began the Children of Bedford, Inc., a foundation that provided millions of dollars in scholarship money and tutoring to the children of women in New York State prisons. So she continued to give back even when she was out.
Education, because Jean knows that knowledge is power, and if you give someone knowledge, you empower them. And these kids already have strikes against them.
Yes.
And they needed it, and she saw that, and it's just, I know she killed him. But I see the good she did. And it makes me think more that this was very much, she was nutty from drugs. Mm-hmm. And there, she I don't know. I'm torn here.
Yeah.
And I'm just sounding worse and worse. But she did good stuff, okay?
I know. Things. Yeah, I think that it's, we can recognize that she did do some really great things for her fellow inmates. I think that's okay.
And their children.
Yes. Yes. And the future generations. Like you said, that we're already starting at this deficit, you know? So she moved into an assisted living facility in Connecticut, and then she died of natural causes on December 23rd, 2012, at the age of 89.
For having such heart problems, she made it to 89.
A long time.
And she had like 2 or 3 different bypass surgeries.
Yes.
Multiple bypasses at a time.
Yeah. So the Scarsdale Medical Diet book had a resurgence in popularity after Herman's death. A 1981 TV movie about the case featured Ellen Burstyn, nominated for an Emmy and a Golden Globe for her performance. And there was another one made with Annette Bening in 2005. And we saw Ben Kingsley.
We just looked at this. I had to see it. The movie poster for that is amazing. It's really good. And Ben Kingsley.
Perfect casting.
I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
The best. And Annette Bening in an ice cold bitch role again, doing the best. And the poster's great. And it just says, she loved him, so she shot him. And yeah, that's exactly
it's a crazy tagline.
It's great. I love it. I love the Ben Kingsley angle. I mean, I'm going to have to watch that as well. I got a lot to do. I didn't even realize.
It's such an interesting case because really it's so rare for me to feel so conflicted. Every single time I'm just like, fuck this person. They murdered someone, the end, that's it. But it seems like she did so many things to try and redeem herself and to try and make a difference for people. And in that sense, I just have this overwhelming sense of gratitude for people like her that are proactive like that. But you just gotta keep in mind that she murdered someone.
Well, yeah, because then you think like, oh, I bet Herman's family's real thrilled with the kids of prison.
Right.
That are, educated and masters and some shit now, and, they don't. But
it doesn't make a difference for the people that love the victim.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No one's going to be happy that Jean Harris did all this things for social change. But I feel like there are outside circumstances that can make someone just make no sense, and just like impulsivity on top of her father had manic depression.
Yeah.
And so there's possibility that there's some undiagnosed, because she never really got treatment. So maybe there's some undiagnosed like manic depressive here, which you could kind of see some of that throughout the story. So I wonder about that. But then I just think that someone who is so able to hold it together and then just go on this freight train of crazy, most of it was drug related.
Yeah.
I really lean towards that again and again.
Yes. But like I said earlier, it's like a lot of people do drugs, and a lot of those people don't kill someone.
See, now
so
you're doing this.
I'm not trying to be, but it's too much to just say that that's the reason.
One other thing that's kind of weird to me is that when you see Jean's mugshot, it looks like she was hit in the face.
Yes,
that was something that I immediately was. Wait a second, which I imagine it's possible. I think she probably got hit by Herman.
Yeah.
During this struggle, if it was so epic. If it wasn't, maybe it was a cop. But it sounds to me like she was probably hit by Herman, because if you look at that picture, she took something to the face.
Yeah. Or because they were struggling for the gun, if she was pulling and then it hit her or something.
Absolutely.
I don't really
like
know.
that.
There was no information about him ever being violent towards her.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In an extreme situation like that, you just never know.
Yeah. There's a show on... you can see it on Hulu. It's called American Scandals with Barbara Walters. And there's an episode on Jean Harris, and it covers a lot of their relationship. And it has great clips of Jean in her words.
Yes.
Which are wonderful.
Yeah, and you can kind of see her demeanor and what she's like.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of going to wrap it up for Jean, right? And then next week we have one more adultery story.
It's a doozy.
One more letter A for you.
Yeah, one more.
So I think that's pretty much it. So if you wanted to check out our social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those links are going to be in our show notes. You can also check out that Barbara Walters special that you were talking about, as well as some of our other resources.
Yeah, it's the Barbara Walters thing's on Hulu.
Yes. So if you want to check those out, we've got links in the show notes. And then if you want to get on our Patreon, we've got the link for that there. We've got bonus episodes and some small merch items. And if you want t-shirts and phone cases and all those bigger merch items, we've got those on Threadless. So I think that's pretty much it for this week.
Sounds like it.
And we'll see you next week for another letter A for adultery.
See ya.
Bye.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance. And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.